Starting the broadcast, and now we got to go to the music. So we're going to go to music.
Not 7:30, say 7:45.
7:45 to 8:45. Okay, let's
Or
see.
9.
This is a new project for us, so let's see if we can start this program right now. Here we go, Bridges Programming.
Good.
I don't hear it.
No, the sound isn't working.
Oh, of course not.
You don't have the sound up.
There are bridges in the sky. They are stone and steel. They are like bridges and letters. They are tree and yellow. They are love and understanding in their They are like bridges and letters. They are tree and yellow. They are love and understanding in their There are canyons, there are canyons, they are They are right canyons, they are low. They are few like suspicion, they are happy and bright. They are dark and so They are few like suspicion, they are happy and bright. They are dark and so Let us build a bridge of music across the sun. Let us find another canyon, let us run. Oh, if someone should ask us how today, we will tell them building bridges as they are done. Oh, if someone should ask us how today, we will tell them building bridges as they are done. We will tell them building bridges as they are
And be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines, for letting us use Bridges song on Bridges Programming. My name is Jeff Beller. Next to me is Susan Comont.
Hello.
And Dennis Carius is on the line with us.
Hi, Dennis.
And we are here to talk about some a very close friend of ours who worked with humanity and renewable energy for years, who passed away a while back. Last week we were with his other friends of ours who were also known Bill Holmberg for as many years as we can remember. And they're in Texas, and we just got back Sunday, so we didn't do the Sunday show, and we have an appointment for the Wednesday World Call-In show. And
So we're combining the
we're
two.
combining the two
And
shows.
we're also at the same time learning some new way to do the program.
Because during that transition, they also changed the format on Google Hangouts to YouTube. So we're learning how to do that. So we're 15 minutes
this
late
is
on the show.
a little jumpy, and bear with us till we get it
Now,
smooth again.
you're going to see, if you look at last week's show, last Sunday's show, you'll see Max Schock and Gracia, and they looked a little upset because they're a good friend of ours, a very close friend of 40 years, 30 years, died, and he was a really great Bill Holmberg, and a very great humanitarian. Now,
and an advocate for renewable energy
and
all
humanity.
his adult life.
A real advocate, not a phony
And a
advocate.
humanitarian. Right?
Real humanitarian. And this program is brought to you by the Human Renewable Energy Measurement, the hrem.org. Also, Bill and I and some other people, Tina Hobson, started something called Renew the Earth. It was called Renew America, and it got so big it went to Renew the Earth.
Right. And
now we're the custodians of that, and we're trying to move
keep it
forward
going, so we
with
can
this.
hand it off to somebody in
Right,
the future.
and hopefully some young people will pick up where we are, because we're not long for this world either. But we need this measurement. We feel as though this measurement, which we just came about within the last 5 or 7 years, we just came about this concept.
Oh, you mean we started thinking about it?
About thinking of it, and
Yeah.
we've been working on it. So it's called the Human Renewable Energy Measure, and it's brought to you, by the way, by Bridges Programming, and which is not on the screen now because we have to get that figured out.
That's our broadcast.
That's our broadcast name, and we try to get that broadcast out around the country, around the world. And if you want to do programming with that to help humanity, we will be more than happy to give you time as far as we can possibly do for your stations and your programs.
Well, and it's free time.
And it's free time. It's no
As
cost
long as
that
we
you.
can support this, it's free time.
So it's very important for us to get this message
Our
out.
voices out
And-
about things that can be done to make
Now,
things better for
Right now, this is
All
a
people.
live show, and if you happen to catch it by some remote chance, we didn't advertise it. You can call in the phone number here, and this is good for Sunday live from 10 to 11, and Wednesday from 10 to 11. And the phone number is 863-812-4736, and that's the number you can call in on. And please don't hesitate to do that. But more importantly, we're going to tell you what you could do, whether you're seeing the show later or at any time, what you could do, what we believe you could do. And we may be wrong, but we believe that every human being has the ability, as an individual, to move this measurement into the world vocabulary.
and into the economic
And to
system.
the economic system,
That's
to
the
change the
important
economic system, to make the system work for all humanity. And what the Human Renewable Energy Measure says, very simply, is everybody who works 1 day a week or 1 hour a day will have their basic needs met, not their wants, their basic needs. That's their education, wide open, full food, a certain amount of energy units, guaranteed, measured. It's about 1 million energy units of food a year
We all have
and
this
1
in
million
common.
energy of water a year, and you can measure the basic shelter you need. Those are needs, they're not wants. Needs never change. However, wants change, and that's where the economic system, the capitalistic economic system comes in. So we have 3 isms here. We have a capitalistic economic system for your wants. Work as hard as you want, make as much as you possibly can if you choose to do that. Then we have a social agreement, a socialized thing. Socialized thing, it says that we all have to agree that all human beings must have their basic needs met. Their needs met worldwide. For 1 day a week, we have to redefine the word work, but that's not going to be a terribly difficult thing to do. Your mother works, your father works, we all work somewhere helping the society around us. Everyone must have their basic needs met, no matter what, and the society can easily afford that.
And free education.
And free education, which is a communistic thought.
And shelter.
Communistic thought is all humanity has to have as much education as they ever want, and it's always available to them as far as they want to go. So you have education, food,
But-
and shelter, and then you have your wants met through the capitalistic system. So it's not a communistic thought or a Marxist thought or a socialized thought. It's strictly
It's a
a
combination
measurement
of all these
of
things.
all isms put together, so instead of dividing and messing things up, we bring together, as Bridges Programming, we want to bring together capitalists and socialists. We want to bring together Republicans and Democrats and Greens and whatever other what do they call that? Parties we
Political
have
parties.
worldwide. We want to get together so there's no divisions in the world. All world must come together. And the Pope is saying the same thing. We must come together with a good idea to help all humanity and not keep on killing things for the name of profit. So that's where we are now, and that's why we're here. And I can implore you, and we will tell you before the end of the program on what we think you could do to do something without costing you money, without costing you
And that's
joining your group.
actually the paper here that we have.
That's where Bill Holmberg comes in.
Is his title of this particular paper was "Don't Follow the Money and Its Surrogate Political Power." So that's the title.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Yes, North we have already started this, and not food or shelter, but education. We have started that in our country. Even if the parents are unemployed, the children still go to grade school and high school at no charge. But it's just when they turn 18 that college is so expensive. When students graduate, they say, I want to go to college, and the parents can't afford it. That's why we never have to ask where our troops come from overseas, because they're told, just go over there for 4 years, and you'll be able to afford college.
Well, that's the problem, Dennis, is that Bernie Sanders, and I think they're trying now to say all education should be free, but we're getting there. We're moving toward that, but the reality is the economic system is controlling the political system worldwide, and it's controlling all this stuff that's worldwide. So I want to bring out Bill Holmberg's idea.
We're talking about, all the world, not just the United States.
Yes.
We're kind of limping our way toward these things, but it's not.
There are other countries that give you free education, like
already,
Cuba.
right.
Cuba's wide open with education. There's parts of France, Europe has a lot of education. Germany, it's very cheap to go to school. And this is one of the few countries that aren't doing that. But we think it has to be a worldwide movement. And that's where we are now.
Hey, can I add, in our country, we could extend beyond high school. College should be less expensive than kindergarten, because any kid graduating high school can go on the internet and learn those knowledge programs for their degree. Much easier than teaching a child in kindergarten. Those teachers need money to do that work. But the teachers in college only give tests to prove that those students on the internet are learning what they're supposed to learn.
Yeah.
We agree with that,
There
Dennis.
can be more self-educating as you get older.
Because we have the internet, we have the internet to actually, like when I'm looking to, just today I was thinking about building a caboose, not a real caboose, but one that would be like a guest house. And I go online, and boy, there's so much out there. So
That people have already done.
Yeah, that people have done. You can't think of anything that
Gives you lots of
like
ideas.
what we're talking about as far as the human renewable energy measured. That is, people have been talking about this since before Play-Doh's day. And Play-Doh, by the way, is not something you make. It's not a clay the kids play with. Play-Doh was a person who picked up ideas from what's his name?
Socrates.
From Socrates, and they talked about this for years. A humane way of doing things, and that's where we're coming from. So please, listen to what Bill Holmberg's saying. Don't follow the money. And this is a great piece of work. I'm going to try to step back from the camera a little bit here if I can figure out how to do this. And let Susan read this.
I'm just going to read a little bit. I'm not going to read it verbatim because Gracia did on our last
Oh, well, you
program.
can read it verbatim again.
All right. Don't follow the money and its surrogate political power. Follow the realities of sustainable future for America and the planet. And this is often what we talk about. What's
All the time,
real?
right.
What's real in front
Physical,
of you?
real things.
And not getting so involved in political power is something that most people don't ever have any they cannot influence
Because they have no money.
yeah, and I say, yeah, right. Oh, wonderful. Okay, let's see what Bill Holmberg has to say. Supporters of fuel ethanol have been seriously weakened by our failure to fully grasp this reality. In other words, don't follow the money. Example, there's no way we can even nibble our way into the massive PR campaign of, quote, we are energy voters, unquote. So I guess there's some kind of PR thing that ExxonMobil and other oil companies and gas industries are I'll have to look that up, but anyway, and other misleading efforts, reports, and studies sponsored by the oil and gas industries. They simply buy their economic and political dominance into the future. And, you know, that nobody has more money than they do at this point in economic history.
The Pope is saying some great things, but they're not even covering the Pope, because he just they don't want to cover the Pope. Because the Pope is saying what we're saying. We need to change the way the system works, and we need to do it on physical needs, not the needs of money, based on physical needs met. Humanity. You're going to go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, he's suggesting then in the following paragraphs, Bill Holmberg is suggesting that, you know, you can't be, you know, following the money and saying, where's the dough? And, you know, if you're working in the biomass and renewable energy industries and technologies, you got to keep your eye on those things and move forward. It's more of a moving forward as a group, as a
society.
There's a powerful momentum that can be very positive and very effective if people mobilize their energies together, and they're not all, you know, going different directions, even though they're the same, you know, have the same technologies they're working with. They don't work with each other sufficiently to get that momentum and a very very useful momentum. But anyway, he expresses it this way. He says we should be mobilizing our vast biomass resource base, moving forward into a bright, sustainable future. Biochemicals, biopharmaceuticals, and biocosmetics are sailing right by their fossil competitors with way more than 30% of the market share, while fossil chemicals haven't even whimpered as industries shifted their feedstock base. So he's saying here, and we talked about this in a previous program, that, you know, the building blocks, the mainstay of the fossil and petroleum product companies is our chemicals, pharmaceuticals, fertilizers, and pesticides,
the byproducts,
and plastics. Things like this are where they really are making. That holds up their whole industry, right?
There's so much money in it.
But Bill is saying that chemicals made from bio-based products, in other words, carbohydrates that are above ground, not compressed carbons.
I want to explain that a little differently. Look, anything that's fossil-based, or I shouldn't say fossil, carbon-based, that comes out of the earth, so it's a very compact carbohydrate, which they call a carbon. The same thing holds true with oil or coal. So when you burn those, it sets off a high amount of CO2 in the air, and that's what creates our CO2. However, anything we can make from a carbon, we can also make from a carbohydrate. Now that's an interesting thing, because that means you don't put out as much carbon, and you can do anything with a carbon with a carbohydrate that you can with a carbon. However, the carbohydrate could be made through plant matter, and all communities can make their own renewable carbohydrate that would do the same things that the fossil fuel industry is doing,
That's what he means when he says biochemicals, biopharmaceuticals,
is
biocosmetics,
made by natural carbohydrate resources, plant matter.
Mm-hmm. Anything that can be fermented, organic materials. And so then he goes on to say biomass, and when he's referring to that, that means these carbohydrates that can be grown, plant matter, residues from crops that are not the edible parts of the crops. Biomass in many forms are quietly slipping into the food marketplace without a ruckus from big oil. Organics and home nearby grown fruits and vegetables in stores and restaurants have been on a steady increase with little interference. At the same time, the Grocery Manufacturers Association teams up with big oil, falsely blaming ethanol for the high price of some foods. Okay, so he's referring, to some places where big oil is, putting up huge blockades. And there was a lot of resistance to organic foods for quite a long time. That's been growing for maybe 50 years
40,
now.
50 years.
But it's been a hard road till recently for organic foods. Now they're in the grocery stores. They were only in health food stores for most of these 40 years. But it is true that now they seem to have gotten a foothold. But why is big oil and gas teaming up against biofuels, particularly ethanol, as we struggle to reach 15%, let alone E30? Meaning the amount that is in the gasoline.
Percentage-wise.
Right. At this point, we have
Right now, we have
10%.
10% or less. And
Yeah.
the reality is, it's interesting, something happened. There was a mistake made in one of the major gasoline refineries, and they kept
recently,
and they kept on saying, well, ethanol hurts your engines, you don't use it, it's bad for you. Well, it's much better for the environment, plus it's also locally grown fuel. So 10% of a market share as large as the oil companies or the gasoline companies is quite a bit of money. And they don't really want to relinquish that money. So they've been putting out a campaign on mainstream media that this is very bad stuff for you. So
it'll wreck your engine.
Right, it'll wreck your engine. Like there's 15% ethanol in E85. It's 85% ethanol and 15%.
What do you mean? 15% ethanol and 85%?
No, it's right now we have 10% ethanol
Right.
in all gasoline.
Right.
But E85 is 85% ethanol
But we're not
and
using
15% gasoline. That's what you can buy if you buy E85. And people say it's going to really hurt your engines. So everybody was afraid of this damn thing. Well, all of a sudden, by mistake, an oil company mixed 30% of ethanol by mistake, and it was distributed throughout a lot of places. And everybody was up in arms. Oh, it's going to hurt my engine. Well, there's not one case where it hurt the engine. And even the oil companies came out and said, not to worry, it won't hurt your car one bit. Now, the reality is that the Ford Motor Company, when Henry Ford first designed the Model T Ford, not the Ford Motor Company, but Henry Ford, all cars ran on ethanol fuel. They didn't run on gasoline. Who got that to happen was Rockefeller when he was able to start to monopolize it with the railroads and the oil companies.
Right.
He went to Ford and said, Henry, do me a favor, run all the cars on oil-based fuel, and I'll provide a gasoline station at every corner. And that's what happened. And there was leaded gasoline, which was terrible for people. And since then, we learned that for 50 years now, we've learned that the ethanol, that the fossil fuel, with the oil companies have been polluting the water and the air for years.
Well, 40 years, and they've known it
And they've
too.
known it, and there are big lawsuits on it now, but we have to
Well,
go
it's not
forward.
gone to a lawsuit yet, but there's an investigation
They're working on it.
by the, started by the New York State
Okay,
Attorney
so
General.
we just want to, we bring these out in other programs, but I'm sorry we're not being very precise, but I'm sorry I interrupted Bill's paperwork. This was one of the last papers he ever wrote, by the way.
Well, he was preparing to go to a conference that's probably, I don't know, it's coming up in October or something.
Yes.
And he was going to maybe make this speech, I don't know. Or, this was going to be his notes for that speech. Anyway, but you were talking about E85, that's the most that you want to do, right?
E85 in a cold climate.
In
In Brazil, it can be almost 100% ethanol.
Right.
It's actually
But here-
E95 because 5% of it's water, by the way. and it works fine, even with the 5%
But
of
there's
water.
nowhere in the United States that we're doing
No,
that
no,
right now.
unless you do it yourself.
But we have 10% in the fuel that you see, at your gas station when it says ethanol.
Right.
That's what it has. Well, is it more than that? Is it
No,
E85?
no, E85 is what you buy special.
Oh,
You go to an
yeah.
E85 pump, you can buy that.
Yeah, you can buy it there, right.
And all your flex fuel vehicles can run E85, and it gets very good gas mileage, and it's much
So
better.
if you see like an ethanol pump that says.
E85.
It is E85, so you can buy it, where it's being offered.
Right, but
at certain-
but the oil companies are trying to really put a kibosh on that, because
Right.
it's cutting into
But-
their market share.
But 10% in your regular fuel
Right.
that you buy is ethanol right now, and they're hoping to get to 15%.
Well, without Bill in the game,
And
it's
it
gonna be
could go
harder.
as high as 30% without, any kind of, problems at all. Okay, going back to Bill, where he's talking about the oil and gas companies teaming up against biofuels, particularly ethanol, as we struggle to reach 15%, let alone E30, which is ethanol 30. This would actually boost their bottom line with a lower cost of octane while meeting the needs of advanced engines, including direct injected, turbocharged plug-in electric and hydrogen vehicles. Is there anti-ethanol crusade based on lost market share, profitability, established refinery operations?
Yes, of course
And
it is.
100 years of success in restraining ethanol? Who knows?
I know it
The
is.
battle rages on. What happened to all of the above, quote, campaign leading to cooperative actions with bio, oil, and ethanol teaming up in the best interest of the nation while slowing, reversing climate change? So at some point, Bill was able, in negotiating in Congress and with representatives of big oil, he was able to get some understanding. Excuse our phone going off in the middle of this. And he was able to get an understanding where they were saying, well, we can use everything, and let's not fight against each other, because we've got to think the bottom line is the good of the nation. So he was getting some progress there, but now he's saying in this that I guess that is it's disappeared over the horizon for a while. And he's saying here E30 could well be that beneficial common ground. Senator Dashiell and the High Octane Low Carbon Alliance provides a great opportunity to heal the consequences of an incredibly expensive and earth-damaging war between the two fuels, oil and ethanol. And all that is because the profit, is because the bottom line is not
It's affecting the
what is
profit of
good
the
for
oil
humanity.
companies, who affect the profit of the stock market to pay the shareholders. And that was never like that before Ronald Reagan. Reagan was right. We had a trickle-down theory which worked, but once you change the tax structure, which was arbitrarily, it could have been 95%, he changed it to 33 1/3%. But the reality is no one knows how much to charge in taxes or minimum wage, because we don't have the measurement. And that's where the HRM comes in again. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And this next paragraph is probably the most, and he was a Marine, and a decorated
Yes.
military man.
Bill Holmberg.
And to have Bill Holmberg and to have him put in writing this next statement it shows how passionate he was about, that biofuels and chemicals, etc., and renewable energy needed to become our dominant energy source. Anyway, he goes on to say, additionally, it is fair to note that oil has been the root cause and the support of warfare for the past century plus. Consequently, it is fully tied into national security and warfare. It is a major source of funding for ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other radical Muslim groups. Only the U.S. Navy is deliberately turning to nuclear and biofuels in readying for the future. And we went to that conference in
Conference, right.
Washington where that was maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah, that was
or
about
5 years ago, and they were stating outright the military is transitioning to renewable energy and biofuels, and the Army too. He's talking about the Navy here, but you know they see the realities
and
of the situation.
reason for this is,
But
first of all, the money is being filtered down through radical groups because of our behavior through the world, our economic system. So the radical groups are feeling though we're killing people around the world, which we are, and we should face up to that. Secondly, that they are bombing the radical groups are knocking out our delivery of transport. We're killing people, and it's costing us a fortune to move the petroleum products around. So they're building now things that they can make locally produced fuels with, and they're switching to nuclear and also to bio-based fuels, which can be made locally, and it keeps the money locally, and it doesn't have to ship all this stuff all over the creation. And they're also talking about solar, because they don't have to worry about plug-ins or equipment to run the generators. So you're seeing more solar stuff come out throughout the military. Again, because of fuel sources.
it's portable.
It's portable. They don't have to run
Trucks
generators and trucks to
Trucks
run
full
the
of fuel
generators.
wherever they're
And,
going.
and by the way, the Battle of the Bulge was fought all over fuel for tanks. It was amazing when you would see that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking at alcohol fuel. As a matter of fact, all the German tanks and all the German equipment ran on 3 different fuel sources: coal, fossil fuel as far as liquid transportation like gasoline and oil,
And they were
and also alcohol.
yeah, they were fermenting anything at the
So,
end of the war to make fuel.
go ahead.
So then Bill Holmberg says, how do we turn a growing group of hard chargers into a literal army of like-minded Americans committed to the reality of the sustainable bio-based future? Sustainable biomass in all its many forms, including aquatic algae and ocean plants as feedstocks.
Oh, let me interrupt. Algae, and then in Florida there's a group called Alginol. There's other groups also, but that's the biggest one I know of. And they take just a plain piece of plastic, put algae in it, and that ferments as the sun hits it, and produces
Well,
alcohol
it's
fuels.
The algae itself, a byproduct of its growth, is
Is
a type of alcohol.
So
It's
right.
pretty complicated because it is a special
But it's,
kind of algae
but
too.
it also brings, there's anything ferments. Question is how much is it?
I don't think they're fermenting algae. They're
Well,
actually
they're
using
making
the
alcohol,
byproduct.
right?
Right, but most things, when you talk about making alcohol fuels, are fermenting processes of some
Alcohol
kind.
fuel.
And he's talking about feedstocks that can, quote, replenish themselves in a growing year or two. Some trees take a few decades. Fossil oil takes the work of nature over millions of years, and it is the major cause of carbon buildup in the atmosphere. So, in those millions of years are compressing and
Compressed carbon.
making those compressed carbons that release all kinds of other things into the atmosphere. That burning a carbohydrate is much less damaging. It's just a matter of degree. It's not that biofuels are not damaging, they're just a lot less damaging.
Yes.
So what is bioethanol's next serious action? Set our positive record straight in terms of yields per acre requiring less land, no food shortage, and no significant increase in cost. Enhanced organic matter in the soil, reduced use of water, and generation of water from the atmosphere with assistance from the full range of biomass. Enhancing land, supporting wildlife, shrubs, trees, forests, streams, and rivers. Efficiencies in the conversion of corn, milo, and other feedstocks into the production of ethanol, distillers' grains, corn oil, and pure CO2 that can be reused. Then we have biochemicals and biopharmaceuticals, biogas, biothermal energy, and electricity. Include highly efficient wood stoves, furnaces, and ethanol heaters. Recognize the organic and locally grown food for humans and pets. Include organic and biofertilizers, pesticides, and compost. Strengthen soils with enzymes, micro and macroorganisms, mineralization, biochar, etc. Trees, timbers, and lumber for construction. Include biofibers for car and plane body parts, and trees and plants for protection of wildlife, land enhancement, and beautification. Incorporate other natural industries, all generating new opportunities as well as millions of good-paying jobs with the satisfaction of living and working in concert with sustainable natural systems. How do we reach tens of millions of like-minded people and broaden their reach for sustainability to include biofuels and all the other renewable natural resources provided by our miraculous planet? We can rebuild farming communities and family farms with a wholesale blend of hard work, advanced science, technologies, and digital revolutions while incorporating the beauty and meaning of wildlife and other natural systems. Rooftops, porches, and backyard gardens add to the healthy food supply while adding volunteer supporters. It's communications. We can't spend hundreds of millions in buying PR time and political votes. We can, however, get into blogs, Twitter, and other systems beyond my understanding. Bless those who are doing so while embracing the wonders of nature. I would ask that you spread your wings to encompass major efforts in promoting all forms of sustainable biomass. Family, friends, and neighbors and fellow workers are good starts. Creative efforts in several communities, states, and businesses are already providing great support and lessons for sustainable biomass products. So he's saying, don't follow the money again. He's saying, use what you have at your fingertips.
We know that
you can communicate with your neighbor
right.
with your voice, or you can communicate with your blogs
and
or your
that's
Twitter, and keep moving the understanding forward that these things are possible and that we have these technologies and that they're better technologies than we're using right
I want
now.
to interrupt a minute, because what he's saying is what we're going to say, we accept. We are saying that you shouldn't go, not do your normal life and concentrate as hard as Bill and we all do, but do other things. Make yourself more comfortable with your life, but at the same time concentrate on helping humanity. And the way you do that is you don't have to buy TV time. We can't afford to do that. We are doing the best we can using the technology available to us. This is not people yell at me because my belly sticks out, or I mumble, or the technology is not right. We're doing the best we can, and we're asking. And what Bill's saying is,
Everybody can do
everyone
something.
can do something.
Right.
Use your tweet.
And the something is under the umbrella of communicating.
Communicate with your.
Communicate.
Don't keep your mouth shut. Don't. If you're talking about, don't be afraid to talk about religion and helping humanity. Don't be afraid to talk about politics. Talk to your pastor about, just like the Pope is doing. Talk to your pastor about talking about sermons or sermons that help humanity. Talk about renewable energy. That's what the Pope is saying. That's why you see so many solar panels on churches now, because the Pope has given a directive, which we suggested 20 years ago to our bishop, to talk about renewable energy, gifts of nature or gifts of God.
And then demonstrate that it's important by putting solar panels on all these churches.
And every human being
Right.
who can afford to do something.
Well,
Use your blogs, as Bill just said, your tweets, and get this message out to promote renewable energy, which in turn helps humanity. We have to change our economic system to benefit all of humanity, not just the top 1%, and the people who will think they're in the middle classes and are working 60 and 80 hours a week just to make ends meet is ridiculous. And the people who have more, like a lot of our friends, can't understand that people are working their butts off. They're working so hard, and then they teach their kids to get an education, which they come out with a huge loan, which is ridiculous, and then they have to work to pay the loan off. So the system keeps on perpetuating itself, and we're not getting ahead. hurting we're killing each other, number one, during this economic, like in Syria and in Indonesia and India and Africa. We're killing people every single day because of our economic system. We're depleting our planet's ozone. We're depleting our water supplies. We're depleting our soils because of the economic system. Does that make sense? And that's what Bill's trying to say too.
Right, and all these things are linked. And just to emphasize once again, it's all about communication. And you as an individual can choose your own form of communication, and it moves outward from there. This is not something that costs us anything to try to
It costs you time,
communicate.
but you need to get this message out.
And then he concludes with a statement, perhaps we could print personal cards, and one side can read, I'm for the United States, and the other side would read, and I'm a sustainable future voter. And then he signs out with Bill Holmberg, an old Marine looking for creative help in transitioning from following the money and its surrogate political power to embracing sustainable natural systems. This is an incredibly powerful national security challenge. And I would add with that
It's
card
a world
that he,
challenge.
well, that's another thing, but that maybe on the, when we vote and you have a choice, do you want to contribute a dollar to the campaign fund so that, to take money out of politics. Maybe there should be another question, saying, do you want to be counted as a sustainable future voter? You could check that off, and then they would find out just how many people are thinking in those terms.
Well, the thing is, we need to make sure that your friends and your relatives and the preachers and the society says, we don't want to kill people. We want to work in cooperation worldwide so everybody has a good quality of life. We must stop this insanity that we're doing to make money upon money without helping anyone in the human sphere. We are allowing our economic system to kill people around the world, and that in turn breeds more people who hate us for the simple reason that we don't even realize how many people we kill a day. But we, in turn, we Westerners, me, you, we're all part of this economic system, which is so invasive and so. It's amazing how big this is.
Well, it's not just the Western world; it's Europe.
It's
Europe.
It's all developed countries
are pretty much doing the same
hooked into the same. Someone told me, well, the other countries are doing much better, but they're not. They're losing ground. they're Sweden. There's other. They understand the problem, but the U.S. is the driver for the whole thing. U.S. and of
the
course,
dollar is the default.
And so is the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is named for that for a specific reason. If you go back in anthropology, you will see that the United Kingdom was set up so the kings would control the economy worldwide, and instead of killing each other for taking over different lands to control the economy, they united, and that's how the United Kingdom got its name. They united, so they worked together as a union to control the world economy, to make slaves out of most of the people.
After they fought for hundreds
of
years
with each other. They said, wait, let's stop fighting and stop these crusades, and let's come together and stop killing my brothers and sisters, and let's all get together and cooperate, and we'll have the United Kingdom. And we can control the economic system. That's how they got the name.
Lots of marriages
the United Kingdom.
Between the various.
Did you know that, Dennis? Did you know that the United Kingdom came together because of all the crusades and the killing each other to take over land and property and these little battles they had, they were world battles actually, with Napoleon Bonaparte and all these other little kingdoms fighting, and finally they said, let's get together and unite our kingdoms so we stop killing one another and then we can control the world economy. Now, if anyone doesn't understand why we did you ever hear the expression, Dennis, GMT?
What does it stand for?
Greenwich Mean Time.
Well, I've heard of that.
That's where all the world focuses on Greenwich, England, for the basic time, 12 o'clock. And then we change the hours. Everything's focused on the 0 point of Greenwich Mean Time. And Greenwich Mean Time is about, I forget the number of hours, and it was set up so all people can come together to offload the ships around the world for commerce. And Greenwich, which was controlling, which still does, controls the economic system, brought commerce together. And that's why they didn't have the best clocks in the world. The Big Ben is not because Sweden had the best clock, and they still do. But Greenwich Mean Time was set up just so all the ships can come in, and the ship people who take
the
laborers
meet the boat at the right time.
Meet the boats. They all come together. So we had to have a time frame,
And
a
unloaded.
worldwide time frame. So we call it GMT, and you'll hear that on the radio today, Greenwich Mean Time, and that means, and you have the United Kingdom. They didn't like the United Kingdom. It would show off too much how they united to control the economy, so they changed the name to Great Britain, and it's Great Britain. That's close enough. That sounds pretty good. Like the way it sounds better than the United Kingdom. They didn't have to unite, they were the United Kingdom. But so they called it Great Britain. They said, wait a second, that sounds a little too puffy also. So then they changed it to just like anything else, like England or Ireland or France or Germany. They just took a simple name like England. But the reality is that was always United Kingdom. And that's what they put that together to make sure that they control the entire game. That's what it was for.
And Dennis has a question. Haven't we actually start Stoop into other countries at the request of the United Kingdom?
We send but we're not, we're complicitous. It's not the United Kingdom, by the way, no matter what people think, that we had the Boston Tea Party and we broke away from England. That is simply not true. We tried to do that, and I think our founders wanted to do that to a certain degree, but even the founders of our country wouldn't let women vote or black people vote, and
people who didn't have
property. You had to have property.
So there was already a hierarchy.
So they had a hierarchy, and they started the colleges so they can teach their children how to be superior leaders. And then they had secondary colleges to make sure that we had the workers, the engineers, to build the commerce. But we're complicitous. England didn't ask us. We came together as a group of people that said we need to control the economy. So it wasn't just the English or the Great Britain or the United Kingdom saying we're going to come together. We're part of that united group. It's like we talk about the United Nations. That's all together to help the world, but they have no power whatsoever. But the United Kingdom, my God, they've got all the power. They've got the weaponry, so if words don't work, they go in there with guns and ammunition troops. So when they say go in there with guns and ammunition and take over that oil, make sure we get the oil out of that country and change the dictator in that country, like you talk about all the time, Dennis, so we can get cheaper oil. That's what they do, and that's what makes the stock market works, and that's what keeps the kings, the people who do nothing to help humanity.
To they, are you talking about England
The
England and the United States?
When I say they, I'm talking about what you would call the 1%ers, the people who are controlling.
So you're thinking of a more nebulous group.
It's a bigger group of people. It's not just the UK. It's not just the United Nations. It's not just France or Germany. It's a group of very, very wealthy people who control the world economy. It's not one person like some people
So
think.
they're like their own nation in a way.
Right. They
Yeah.
control the world economy, and that's
And
what,
that-
and they control politics too. So
and that's where we can't possibly compete.
So, but-
And that's why Bill is recommending do not follow the money or
don't
its
follow the
surrogate,
money. Right.
which is political power, because money can buy political power.
It's controlled. How much are you worth? How much is a dollar worth? You can't answer that question today because it's subjective. And the people who have the opinion of what it's worth, or how much you should get paid, or how little you should pay in taxes, are the 1%ers, and it's a subjective thought. That's why we need the measurement. So it can't be, you can't change the fact the sun comes up every day, or gravity is part of the planet, or you die at 80 years of age, or you need a certain amount of food. You can't change those things. But if we measure those things in physics, the economic system would change drastically. So that's where we are, I think, today, and I think it's a very good idea to try to think about changing that. Anyway, that's my thought.
And that's why I mentioned the United Kingdom, because we had not just 1776, but even war of 1812. That was against that same country. But if there's oil around over there, we will still do what they ask us today to do.
But we are part of them, Dennis. That's the problem.
You're
we are
right.
part of them. And the United Nations is also controlled by money. And what backs up the money is the brute force of the wars and our nuclear power, and that's again, the people with the power. When all negotiations break off, then we use power. So I'm saying, if everybody's needs were met, if we can base it on the human renewable energy measure, all needs would be met. It would be a fair, honest system. The money would become honest. There would be a functional government to make sure all humanity has their basic needs met. And it changes the entire world and what you as an individual can do about it. Everybody listening to this program, talk about a measurement that's based on humanity to help humanity. All human beings must have their basic needs met. We must
These are physical realities.
It's a physical reality.
Right.
We all need shelter, basic shelter, and we all need education. However, we all are different people, so we have different wants. Only the nose knows what the beak seeks, as the expression goes. Mm-hmm. And I'm suggesting that we all have our own wants, and the wants is where the free market, literally free market, would come into play, and that it would be a capitalistic market. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're just saying that all humanity must have their basic needs met. And that's where the Human Renewable Energy Measurement comes in, the hrem.org, thehrem.org. Please try to do everything you can. Go ahead, Dennis.
I think we could find the answer. The solution is something called peak oil. When the oil comes out of the Middle East, it's going to stop a lot of what's going on over there, people dying, and even what we call terrorism in this world. A lot of that terrorism, end quote, I think is being provoked by our dependence on oil.
But it's costing us more in our labor and money and time, more or less, to pull that oil out of the ground. And if you add the wars to it and the killings and all that other stuff to it, it's really a serious problem. So and there'll never be, oil's peaked out for years now. Oil's peaked out for probably the past 10 or 15 years. And our children are going to look back and say, you guys were so, if we're still here, if this planet survives, our kids are going to look back at us and say, you allowed, knowing you had a finite item, you based your entire economy on this? Are you guys crazy? Were you delusional? And they were right to say that, if we're still to be here. But the point is, it is a finite item, and it has peaked out already, and that's the problem. The powers that be need to control the coal, which we know there's a problem with coal. It's ruining our atmosphere. There's a problem with extractive energies. The extractive system is where the big money sits. and that's why they're trying to get into, as you say, put a meter on the sun so they can charge us for solar. These are things that are happening right now as we speak. But we need to be able to, people have to realize that we have to think of another way of changing it. We can't do it by force or by elections. We need to get this measurement out into the vocabulary. I can't implore upon you enough. Holmberg was one of the few people in a position such as his in the industry with the education he had. Most of our education friends don't understand this. And it's so, and Holmberg said to me, and Susan, he said, this is such a hard thing to try to explain to people. Well, that's we ask people, please, if you understand what we're saying, that you do think all basic needs must be met for about a day's worth of work because of the way our system is developed. We have so much technology that all humanity can have their basic needs met, no matter where you are in the world, for 1 day a week, their education, food, and shelter. And then you allow your free market to take effect. So you're not going to change much. There's people who are going to want to work harder, they're ambitious, and there's people who just want their basic needs met and they're very happy with it.
What it will do is change the way that people
changes the way our
see each
economic
other,
system
right,
work,
and the way that they behave toward each other. If you're always being pitted against somebody for your life survival, if you're always competing for your life survival, you look at your other people in a very different way than if your work efforts you are assured that your work efforts will translate into basic needs met, and then if you work more, of course, you can satisfy many of your needs throughout your lifetime. I think we're come to the end.
Well, we have another couple of minutes left. Dennis, we have 3 minutes, and I know that you're going to talk about greed, and I know you want to talk about our education system and dysfunctional governments, but I think that if we can possibly get this measurement into world vocabulary, into all different languages, you will see that you'll have a functional government. You won't have greed any longer. It'll be people who have ambition with good ideas.
It won't be the dominant thing. Right now, greed is definitely one of the symptoms of a survival of the fittest type economic system, which is what we've got. And survival is not of the fittest, it's survival of the people who play the game, the best. Or
and Darwin never said survival of the fittest. Darwin never said that. There was another way.
Well, he later in his life kind of accepted it because it became so popular. But I think his initial, from what I've read of his work, his initial ideas were about cooperation, and he saw a lot of the species that he studied, he realized that they were highly influenced by their environment, for one thing, and then the ones that were able to cooperate with each other the most advantageously were surviving better. It wasn't like one individual, was beating off another one and getting everything for themselves. It was more a cooperative effort amongst the species that were doing very well in any particular environment. So,
wow.
It's
so.
yeah.
So anyway, so please do what you
so
can.
easy to save our planet. All we have to do is put solar panels out there. In 6 or 7 years, you get everything that you put in for those solar
I hate to talk about money.
We print money.
We don't need it's free. We'll see you later. Thank you all for listening. Tune in again next Sunday on Sunday on the Front
Neighbors must work because the close family tries to educate